Economists have developed several tools to explain and potentially predict human behavior. It is important to explain that one of the fundamental assumptions in economics is that individuals always act rationally and in their own self-interest. Consumer behavior can also be used to analyze the effectiveness of marketing efforts. Marketers use a variety of techniques to influence consumer preferences, such as advertising, product placement, and celebrity endorsements. Hi there. Today is part 2 of the series on predicting behavior. As we have seen from the recap, part 1 focused on laying the groundwork, discussing several tools that economists use to analyze and predict human behavior. Today, I shall continue the discussion of utility and focus on different aspects that are critical to understanding what motivates individuals and households to take the decisions that they do, and how this may be relevant for predictive commercial and policy decisions. Before I continue, however, do visit our website where I curate news and publications from international financial organizations and world central banks. Topics cover a wide range of financial and economic issues that affect individual countries or the world economy. For instance, COVID-19, inflation, or the war in Ukraine. Please also subscribe to this channel and be informed whenever we publish a new video. As I discussed in part 1, utility functions are an essential tool in economics. They help us understand how individuals make decisions about what to buy and consume. The underlying principle of utility functions is that consumers aim to maximize their satisfaction or utility from their consumption decisions. By using a mathematical framework, economists can model the choices individuals make and identify the factors that influence their decision making. To clarify, a math function is a rule that takes an input or set of inputs, performs a specific operation on them, and produces an output. A utility function, therefore, is a mathematical equation or rule that describes how individuals or households derive satisfaction or utility from their consumption of different goods or services. So, to rephrase, a utility function represents a consumer's preferences and satisfaction from consuming goods and services. The function shows how the utility of the individual varies with different levels of consumption of goods and services. The concept of utility functions is widely used in consumer theory, which is a central area of microeconomics. The utility function allows economists to model the consumer's behavior and decision making. It enables economists to understand how consumers choose between different options and how their decisions are influenced by various factors, such as price, income, and personal preferences. By applying mathematical optimization techniques, economists can analyze how consumers can allocate their budget across different goods and services to maximize their total utility. Modeling the utility functions of different households is a critical area of research in economics. Understanding the factors that influence consumer behavior and decision-making can help policymakers and businesses design better policies and strategies to meet the needs of different consumers. The utility function of a household depends on several factors, such as income, age, gender, household size, and personal preferences. To model the utility functions of different households, economists use different techniques, including surveys, experiments, and statistical analysis. These techniques enable economists to gather data on the consumption patterns of different households and the factors that influence their decision making. One popular technique used in modeling the utility functions of different households is discrete choice analysis. Discrete choice analysis is a statistical technique used to model the choices individuals make between different options. This technique involves collecting data on the choices individuals make and the characteristics of those individuals. By analyzing this data, economists can model the preferences and decision-making of different households. Another approach used in modeling utility functions is revealed preference analysis. This approach involves analyzing the choices individuals make in the marketplace and inferring their preferences from those choices. For example, economists can analyze the purchasing behavior of households and infer their preferences for different goods and services. The information gathered through these techniques can be used to develop models that predict the demand for different goods and services by different households. These models are important tools for policymakers and businesses to understand how different households respond to changes in market conditions. By using the utility function, economists can analyze how consumers make choices between different goods and services and how they respond to changes in market conditions. For example, economists can use utility functions to predict the impact of a change in the price of a particular good on the consumer's demand for that good. By understanding how consumers respond to these changes, policymakers can make informed decisions that benefit the society. Utility functions are also useful for businesses. By analyzing consumer behavior using utility functions, businesses can identify which goods and services are most in demand and understand the factors that influence consumers' purchasing decisions. This knowledge can help businesses develop better marketing strategies and optimize their product offerings to meet consumer needs. Marginal utility is a fundamental concept in economics that is used to describe the satisfaction or usefulness that an individual derives from consuming an additional unit of a good or service. In simple terms, it refers to the additional benefit that a person gets from consuming one more unit of a good or service. Marginal utility is important because it helps us understand how people make decisions about what to consume and how much of it to consume. It also helps explain why people are willing to pay different prices for different goods and services, and why demand for a good or service may increase or decrease over time. The concept of marginal utility has many important implications for economics. For example, it helps us understand why demand curves slope downwards. That is, why people are willing to buy more of a good or service when the price is lower. As the price of a good or service decreases, the marginal utility of each additional unit increases, making it more attractive for consumers to purchase additional units. Marginal utility also helps us understand why some goods or services have higher prices than others, even though they may have similar production costs. For example, a luxury car may have a higher price than a basic economy car, even though the production costs of both cars may be similar. This is because the marginal utility of the luxury car is higher for some consumers who are willing to pay a higher price for the additional benefits that it provides. The concept of marginal utility was first developed by the Austrian economist Karl Menger in the late 19th century. Menger argued that the value of a good or service is subjective and that it depends on the individual preferences of consumers. He proposed that the value of a good or service is determined by its marginal utility, which is the amount of additional satisfaction or benefit that a person gets from consuming one more unit of it. The law of diminishing marginal utility is an important concept in economics that states that the additional satisfaction or utility a person derives from consuming additional units of a good or service will eventually decrease as more units are consumed, holding all else constant. In other words, the more of a good or service a person consumes, the less additional satisfaction they will receive from each additional unit consumed. This is because the person's needs or wants for that particular good or service will be satisfied to a certain extent, and additional units will not provide as much additional satisfaction or benefit. The law of diminishing marginal utility is based on the idea that people have a limited capacity to derive satisfaction from consuming goods and services. As a result, the first unit of a good or service consumed provides the most satisfaction, while subsequent units provide diminishing amounts of satisfaction. This means that as a person consumes more units of a good or service, the total utility they receive will continue to increase, but at a decreasing rate. To illustrate this concept, consider the example of a person who is hungry and decides to eat a pizza. The first slice of pizza that will provide a significant amount of satisfaction as the person is hungry, and the pizza is a desired food item. However, as the person continues to eat more slices of pizza, the satisfaction that they derive from each additional slice will decrease. Eventually, the person will become full, and the marginal utility of each additional slice of pizza will be close to zero. In other words, the person will no longer derive much satisfaction from eating additional slices of pizza. The law of diminishing marginal utility has several important implications for consumer behavior and market demand. For example, it explains why people are willing to pay more for the first unit of a good or service than for subsequent units. This is because the first unit provides the most satisfaction, while subsequent units provide less satisfaction, which reduces the consumer's willingness to pay. The law of diminishing marginal utility also explains why people tend to diversify their consumption. Instead of consuming large quantities of a single good or service, people often choose to consume a variety of goods and services to maximize their total satisfaction. This is because the marginal utility of additional units of a good or service decreases as more units are consumed, while the marginal utility of additional goods or services may still be high. In addition, the law of diminishing marginal utility has important implications for the pricing and production decisions of firms. For example, if a firm wants to maximize its profits, it should produce and sell the quantity of a good or service that maximizes the difference between the price and the marginal cost of production. This is because as the quantity produced and sold increases, the marginal cost of production will also increase, which will eventually lead to a decrease in the marginal revenue received for each additional unit sold. The firm should continue to produce and sell until the marginal cost equals the marginal revenue, at which point profits will be maximized. To summarize, utility functions are an important tool for economists to understand how consumers make decisions about what to buy and consume. By using mathematical models, economists can analyze consumer behavior, identify the factors that influence consumer decisions, and predict how consumers will respond to changes in market conditions. This knowledge is essential for policymakers and businesses to make informed decisions that benefit consumers and the whole economy. The concept of marginal utility is a fundamental concept in economics that helps us understand how people make decisions about what to consume and how much of it to consume. It is important for understanding demand curves, consumer behavior, and pricing decisions in various markets. By analyzing the marginal utility of different goods and services, economists can gain insights into the choices that people make and the factors that influence their behavior. The law of diminishing marginal utility is an important concept in economics that explains why the additional satisfaction or utility a person derives from consuming additional units of a good or service will eventually decrease as more units are consumed. This law has important implications for consumer behavior, market demand, and the pricing and production decisions of firms. By understanding the law of diminishing marginal utility, economists and policymakers can better understand how people make decisions about consumption and how firms can optimize their profit.